my name is Clara Jensen. I'm 32 years old, and I'm an event planner. Right now, the only event I care about is the one unfolding in my headphones. The tinny sound of Mark's voice, my fiancé's voice, filled my ears, followed by a woman's laugh that wasn't mine. I was sitting in my car, parked 2 blocks from the house we were supposed to share, the house where he was currently, presumably, alone. The small, black USB stick, barely larger than my thumb, pulsed with a tiny red light on the passenger seat. It held the truth, raw and undeniable. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white, but my face remained a mask. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. Not yet. All I felt was a cold, hard clarity settling over me. He thought I was naive, too busy with wedding plans to notice. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. The perfect wedding he envisioned was indeed going to be an event, but not in the way he expected. To understand how I got to that moment, listening to my life unravel in a parked car, you need to know about Mark Harrison. We met 2 years ago at a charity gala I'd helped organize for a major tech firm. He was a rising star in their sales department, all charm and ambition, with a smile that could disarm anyone. I was immediately drawn to his energy, his vision for the future, and how he seemed to genuinely appreciate the meticulous detail I put into my work. He made grand gestures, surprise weekend trips, flowers delivered to my office, thoughtful gifts. He often said I was the most organized, intelligent, and beautiful woman he'd ever met. I'd never felt so seen, so cherished. Our relationship progressed quickly. We moved into a beautiful craftsman house in Silver Lake 6 months after our first date. He proposed 6 months ago, on a picturesque beach in Malibu, with a custom-designed sapphire engagement ring surrounded by diamonds, a design we'd picked out together, symbolizing our unique, vibrant connection. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. We were planning a large wedding for early October, just 6 weeks away. Every detail was accounted for, from the floral arrangements to the string quartet. My career as an event planner meant I approached my own wedding with the same precision I gave my clients, which Mark always praised. He loved that I handled everything, telling me it freed him up to focus on his demanding job. Then, about 2 months ago, small cracks started to appear. Nothing overt, just subtle shifts. Mark, who was always so open about his schedule, became a little more vague. He'd say he was working late at the office, but his phone would be on silent, and he wouldn't text back for hours. One evening, I found a receipt tucked into his jacket pocket. It was from the Gilded Spoon, a notoriously expensive French restaurant we'd never been to, dated for a Tuesday night he'd claimed to be at a mandatory client dinner in Orange County. The receipt was for 2 entrees, a bottle of champagne, and a dessert. I asked him about it casually. He brushed it off, saying it was a last-minute client dinner he'd forgotten to expense, and the client had picked up the tab for the champagne. "You know how those tech guys are," he'd said with a dismissive wave. "Always trying to impress." I let it go, telling myself I was being paranoid. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I started noticing other things. A faint, sweet perfume on his shirts that wasn't mine, a scent like jasmine and something musky. He'd become unusually protective of his phone, always keeping it face down, even in the house. He'd disappear into his home office for important calls that seemed to last longer and longer, sometimes with the door almost completely closed. One afternoon, while I was organizing our shared credit card statements for wedding budgeting, I saw a string of charges from a boutique hotel downtown, all on nights he was supposedly working late or away on business trips. The amounts were small enough to be plausible for client entertainment but frequent enough to raise an eyebrow. Each charge was just under the threshold that would typically trigger a detailed expense report. He was careful. I tried to talk to him again. "Mark," I said one evening, "you've been working so much lately. Are you sure everything's okay? You seem distant." He pulled me into a hug, kissing my forehead. "Baby, I'm just trying to secure our future. Big promotion coming up, big deal closing. It's intense, but it'll all be worth it for our life together." He even suggested a romantic weekend getaway after the wedding, to reconnect. His reassurances were so convincing, so perfectly phrased, that I almost believed him. Almost. But the image of that restaurant receipt, the faint perfume, and the hotel charges kept swirling in my mind. He was a master of deflection, of making me feel guilty for even asking. That's when I decided I needed more than a gut feeling. My work as an event planner and involved coordinating A/V setups, so I was familiar with discrete recording equipment. I bought a tiny voice recorder online, disguised as a sleek USB drive. It was designed to look like a standard piece of office equipment. I knew Mark often took calls in his home office, especially when he thought he had the house to himself. I waited for the perfect opportunity. He announced he had a crucial, late-night conference call with a West Coast client team, and would need to be undisturbed. I told him I had a final client meeting upstate and would be staying overnight. It was a lie, but a necessary one. The moment he left for what he thought was my trip, I placed the recorder on a shelf behind a stack of old business journals in his office. It was a spot he rarely touched. I activated it, the tiny red light barely visible. Then I drove to a friend's house, pretending to be on my way out of town. The next morning, I returned early, retrieved the recorder, and drove straight to my car, parking a few blocks away. My hands were shaking as I plugged the device into my laptop. The first hour was mundane, keyboard clicks, muffled phone conversations about sales figures. Then, a new voice. A woman's voice. And then, the words that shattered my world. It was Mark, talking to someone named Tiffany. "She's so busy planning our perfect little wedding," he chuckled, "she wouldn't notice if I brought another woman home. She's so naive." He went on to describe me as a good catch for appearances, but boring in bed and too high-strung. He discussed their plans for a weekend trip to Napa, using the excuse of a business retreat for me. He even complained about the cost of my engagement ring, saying he could have gotten something much cheaper if he hadn't been trying to impress her parents. The full conversation lasted nearly 20 minutes. My hands were still on the steering wheel, but the cold clarity had intensified. It wasn't just cheating, it was a deliberate, calculated deception, laced with contempt. He hadn't just betrayed my trust, he'd mocked my entire existence. The sapphire ring on my finger suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. I drove to my best friend Sarah's apartment. Sarah was a corporate lawyer, sharp as a tack, and fiercely loyal. I walked in, handed her the USB drive, and just said, "Listen to this." She put it on speaker, and we sat in silence as Mark's voice filled her living room. Her jaw tightened with each word. When it was over, she just stared at me. "Clara," she said, her voice quiet, "what do you want to do?" I looked down at the sapphire ring, sparkling under the lamplight. "I want him to feel exactly what I feel," I told her. Humiliated. Exposed. And I want everyone who bought into his charm to see him for what he truly is. Sarah nodded slowly. "Epic revenge, then?" she asked. I met her gaze. Epic. The engagement party was scheduled for the following Saturday. It was to be a lavish affair at a rented estate, with over 100 guests, our families, our closest friends, and many of Mark's high-profile business associates. I had planned every detail, down to the custom lighting and the champagne tower. Mark was particularly excited about it, seeing it as a networking opportunity, a chance to solidify his social standing. He'd even insisted on a formal toast from both of us, a public declaration of our love and commitment. It was the perfect stage. Over the next few days, I moved with a strange, quiet focus. Mark noticed nothing. He was absorbed in his work, in preparing for the party, occasionally making a comment about how beautiful I looked, or how lucky he was. Each compliment felt like a fresh insult. I finalized the catering, confirmed the band, and even had a special projector and sound system installed for a slideshow of our journey together. No one questioned it, an event planner always had a reason for extra A/V. Sarah helped me craft a short, concise statement, making sure I didn't say anything that could be construed as defamation, just the facts. We planned the exact moment, the exact words. I made sure the audio file was clean, clear, and ready to play. Saturday arrived. The estate was breathtaking. Flowers bloomed everywhere, candles flickered, and the air hummed with excited chatter. Mark, resplendent in a tailored suit, moved through the crowd, shaking hands, laughing, playing the role of the devoted fiancé perfectly. He kissed my cheek, whispered about how beautiful I looked, and how proud he was. I smiled, a cool, distant smile that he mistook for happiness. My heart was a block of ice in my chest. As the evening progressed, the band took a break, and the master of ceremonies announced it was time for the toasts. Mark went first, delivering a saccharine speech about our unbreakable bond and shared future, his eyes glittering with what I now knew was pure performance. He raised his glass to me, and the guests echoed his sentiment. Then it was my turn. I walked to the microphone, my sapphire ring sparkling under the spotlights. A hush fell over the crowd. I took a deep breath, looking out at the sea of faces, at my parents, at Sarah, and finally, at Mark, who beamed at me expectantly. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice clear and steady. "Mark and I are so grateful for your love and support as we embark on this exciting journey. In fact, Mark and I have had many conversations about our journey, about our future, and about the kind of honesty and commitment that forms the foundation of a lasting partnership." I paused, letting my gaze sweep over the crowd. Mark looked a little confused, but still smiling. "And sometimes," I continued, "those conversations reveal more than you ever expected. Sometimes, they reveal the true character of a person." I reached into my small clutch bag, pulling out a remote control. I prepared a very special segment for tonight, a little audio clip from one of Mark's recent business calls that I think truly encapsulates the spirit of our relationship. Before Mark could react, before anyone could even process what I was doing, I pressed play. The sound system, which I had personally overseen, boomed to life. First, the muffled sounds of his home office. Then, Mark's distinctive voice, clear as a bell, talking to Tiffany. "She's so busy planning our perfect little wedding, she wouldn't notice if I brought another woman home. She's so naive." The words echoed through the silent ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My parents looked horrified. Sarah stood tall, her eyes fixed on Mark. His face went from confusion to utter mortification, then to a furious, blazing red. He started to move towards me, but I held up a hand. "She's a good catch for appearances," the recording continued, "but boring in bed and too high-strung." A few people openly gasped. "And the ring? Could have gotten something much cheaper if I hadn't been trying to impress her parents." The recording played for about 30 seconds, the most damning parts, before I pressed stop. The silence that followed was deafening. I met Mark's enraged stare. "Mark Harrison," I said, my voice unwavering, "I am neither naive nor boring, and I am certainly not high-strung. I am a woman who values honesty, respect, and fidelity. And you, clearly, value none of those things." I slowly, deliberately, pulled the sapphire engagement ring from my finger. It felt light now, insignificant. I held it up for everyone to see, then placed it gently on the small, velvet-covered table beside the microphone. "Consider this engagement, and our entire future, officially terminated." The immediate aftermath was chaos. Mark lunged for the microphone, sputtering denials, shouting that it was a fake, a setup. But the raw authenticity of his voice on the tape, the specific details, made his protests fall flat. His business associates looked at him with disdain. Many guests started to whisper, then to leave. My parents rushed to my side, tears in my mother's eyes, but my father simply wrapped an arm around me, a look of grim pride on his face. Sarah quickly stepped in, calmly directing the staff to politely usher out the remaining guests. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was swift and brutal for Mark. The story, fueled by indignant guests and my quiet, unvarnished account to those who asked, spread like wildfire through his professional and social circles. His reputation, so carefully constructed, crumbled. Several key clients pulled out of deals, citing concerns about character and integrity. The promotion he was so sure of vanished. He tried to contact me, sending furious texts and emails, demanding I retract my statements, threatening legal action. But I blocked him everywhere. Sarah sent him a concise letter from her firm, detailing the expenses I'd incurred and the emotional distress, ensuring he knew I was not to be trifled with. He never dared to pursue anything. I cancelled the wedding, of course, taking care of all the vendors myself. Many were incredibly understanding, some even offering their services for a future, happier occasion. I took a much-needed vacation, alone, to clear my head. The sapphire ring, the symbol of a future I had so meticulously planned, sat in a small box at the back of my jewelry drawer. It no longer represented a unique connection or a vibrant future. It was just a pretty stone, purchased by a man who saw me as a means to an end. It was a reminder to trust my instincts, to look beyond the grand gestures and the perfect facade. My heart had healed, slowly, but my eyes were wide open.